It is time that we do an analysis of the 2024 president's election. I was wrong. A lot of people were wrong. This election was a lot more of a red wave than I thought. First of all, we do have to preface a few things as we go through this. So first of all, AP's margins are going to differ slightly from CNN, and they have not called Nevada or Arizona for presidency or for Senate. Looking at CNN, which I really don't use, but looking at CNN, they called Nevada. They didn't call Arizona yet. I don't think they called Pennsylvania in favor of Pennsylvania yet. And for the House, they're saying it's 213 to 202. Associated Press, there, which Google defaults to, they're saying 211 to 199. So there's a bit of a discrepancy between them, and the margins probably aren't going to be the same because this, looks at the current margins that we have. Nonetheless, I don't want to wait, and I'm going to be in Illinois for a few days. I'm not coming back until the Tuesday after, so I wanted to make this video now to both look at the margins of this election, analyze a little bit for the president, Senate, and even governorship, and then comparing it to previous elections, and then we can look at, what the swing states could be, but also, being a little bit careful and realizing this is a red wave. Because you'll look and see that Wisconsin was until Republican. Lean Republican, you had Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada, North Carolina. Arizona fell into the likely Republican category. As of now, and obviously it's only 78% reporting, so it could shrink down. But as of now, Trump has it by 6%. Why haven't they called it? I assume because only 78% of the vote is in, and this margin is probably going to shrink down. I see it shrinking down a bit. I really would think they would have called Nevada, and I think CNN did, because 3.4 to Trump, with 98% in, he's going to win. But Arizona, it could shrink a little bit. I guess they're thinking. But, look at Arizona, and look at Democrats. New Hampshire and Maine are the lean Democratic states. There's no tilt Democratic states. And, Virginia, New Jersey, New Mexico were all closer than Arizona. Of course, these could also change, although New Jersey's at 92% reporting, Virginia's at 97% reporting, New Mexico, they're at 99% reporting. So we can see these change. So then you might wonder, why don't we ever consider Virginia, New Jersey, New Mexico to be swing states? And, well, there's a few reasons behind it. You look at the gubernatorial elections, you'll actually see a possible explanation for this. But allows because it was a red wave election. I mean, Trump is very likely to sweep all the swing states, winning Wisconsin by 0.9, Michigan by 1.4, Pennsylvania by 2.1, North Carolina by 3.4, Georgia by 2.2, Arizona by 6 possibly, and Nevada by 3.4. So we see that effect. We see Ohio being won by Trump by 11.3. Florida, he won by 13.1. Texas by 13.8. But again, I'd be wary of saying that, of possibly espousing that, Florida, Ohio, and Iowa are known to not really be swing states. Texas, be careful. This was a this was a red wave election. And you really got to be careful as to the state is still turning blue, possibly, but we still don't know yet. Like Alaska was Trump won by 15.1. That's been bluing up, although I think Republicans are going to take back control of the House seat in Alaska that Democrats won in 2022. And well, we might even look at state legislative elections depending on the time, but that's not really a top priority for me right now. In Iowa, again, Trump by 13.2 is how much he won that state by. But you also look at for Democrats. New Hampshire is only 2.7. That's been a bit reliable for Democrats. And Democrats, carried Minnesota by 4.3, which, again, wasn't actually the most surprising of results, but still. And then you look at other states, like some big surprises. Delaware only went to House by 14.7. New York went to House only by 11.6, according to CNN. Connecticut 14.8, Rhode Island 13.5. That really shocked me because Rhode Island is one of the most reliable Democratic states in the country. New Jersey, Harris won that again by 5.3%. Like, even a state that she normally dominates in, she still had, troubles. Colorado 11.4, so Colorado is obviously no longer a swing state. It was at one point thought to be one. New Mexico 5.8. So again, it sort of shows that possible trend that we're seeing as to these possible shifts of states, because we can look at past elections for the Democrats, and we see, back then we had these swing states, the Big Seven. Trump won North Carolina by 1.3, but everything else was won by Biden. Georgia by 0.24, Arizona by 0.31, Biden carried Nevada by 2.4, Michigan by 2.8, Pennsylvania by 1.2. And obviously in that election, we saw states like Virginia go to Biden by 10.1. New Jersey went to Biden by 15.9. New York was incredibly Democratic at 23.1. Rhode Island 20.8. And now we're seeing all these states, really just narrow up. I mean, New Hampshire went from 7.4 to 2.7 in favor of it. New Mexico went from 10.8 to 5.8. Colorado didn't really see much of a swing there. We saw Texas in the election vote for Trump by 5.6. Alaska 10.1. Florida 3.4. So it's really easy to look at these things and look at, where the trend's going, but it's hard to tell before the next election. And even now, there's so many question marks about what's actually a swing state and what's not a swing state, because there's so many discrepancies. But we can compare the CNN results versus the 2020 election, and we see that every single state has turned redder, some more significantly than others. The biggest shift was New York, which as of now, we're looking at an 11.5% shift in favor of Donald Trump. The smallest shift, I have to move my camera around, it looks like Utah at 0.33%. Actually, no, Washington moved Trump by 0.04%, so it was that state that was really the closest. Because in a lot of cases, we really saw this effect of, Trump is, how Trump is just doing better in all these states, and in some cases, by really significant margins. Like, he really flipped the script around in a lot of these states. And in some cases it was more significant and more obvious in other cases, like how much is moved towards Trump. And this is a little bit shocking too, because you can compare, no, not this, you can compare past elections to other past elections, like 2020 to 2016, and or you can't. Or you just can't. Anyway, though, looking at 2016, we see with these swing states, Clinton carries Nevada. The other ones go to Trump, but in this case, it's even more significant, seeing as how they all went to Trump, and they were closer to. I mean, Trump won Georgia by 5.1, but like Arizona only won by 3.5. Nevada still went to Clinton by 2.4. Michigan was 0.22. Wisconsin 0.76. Pennsylvania 0.72. And even in the states that were closer, like Rhode Island was still in a safe column. New York was well in a safe column. Connecticut, was 13.6. New Jersey was 14.1. Virginia was 5.3. So I guess that was sort of similar. New Mexico fell to 8.2, but we also saw like Colorado being close, 4.9. So obviously, it was deemed a big swing state in like 2012 when it was around the tipping point state and about as blue as Pennsylvania and a lot further to the red in states like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Nevada, which we typically associate to be swing states with today. 2008, even then, it's literally the tipping point state. Like even though it was that, and look at how solid Michigan is back then. Michigan is solid Democrat. I mean, I know it was a landslide, but whoa! And you can even see this effect of how you look at these states and you look at how politically they've changed and how our old definitions of swing states need to be adjusted for a new definition of what a swing state actually is because this election proves it. This election literally proves why you need to be careful as to what you think of a swing state because oh my god. And now Senate. So looking at the Senate, it looks like Republicans flipped 4 seats. Pennsylvania, they won by 0.5%. Montana, they flipped by 7.5%. West Virginia, they won by 41.3%, and that was never even in contention. And they also took the state of Ohio by 4%. And we're going to look at 2018 and see, why. And as disastrous as it seems, 2024 was one of the friendliest maps to Republicans you could imagine for. I'm not even kidding. 2018, the map is so friendly to Republicans after the 2012 election, and I'm not even kidding when I tell you this, that in one of the biggest blue waves in history, they gained seats in the Senate. Why? It's just so damn hard for Democrats. It's a miracle that they could keep as many seats as they did in 2018, and even in 2024, as bad as it was, it could have been even more catastrophic. Democrats comfortably kept Nevada and Arizona, and while Wisconsin and Michigan were, too close to call, those are 4 states that Trump won that they kept their incumbents. It's 53-47 is probably what it's going to wind up being. It could have easily been 57-43. Republicans could have flipped 8 seats, and they're not even kidding. But they didn't. You can even see now, New Jersey, still a bit close. Maryland was only won by 7.9%. They actually predicted it to be a potential competitive race because of Larry Hogan, the popular governor, running for senator there. So that was seen as a possibility for trouble. That was seen as a possible thing. An area in all the critical states Trump swept. Republicans didn't sweep all of them because they didn't get Maryland, they didn't get Nevada, they didn't get Arizona, they couldn't get Wisconsin or Michigan. There were a solid 5 key races that the Democrats won in the Senate, but they couldn't keep Montana, they couldn't keep Ohio, they couldn't keep Pennsylvania, and and they couldn't keep Texas because Cruz won that by 8.6. But it was gonna be really tough for Democrats to keep the Senate. Even if Biden won, Kamala won, they probably still wouldn't have kept the Senate. This map is just too goddamn hostile to the Republican Party. And looking at past elections, 2022, it certainly wasn't a red wave, but it was a bit surprising that the race was as close as it was. And comparing 2022 to 2016, comparing them, you can see that there's literally only one state actually made a difference in how they voted. Well, actually 2, but it was only 1 because, there were 3, but remember, they flipped the Georgia and Arizona seats in the 2020 election, along with the Democrats flipping Colorado. But at least the Republicans flipped Alabama, still lost control of the Senate, though. But that was that. And, you had these races up in 2020 that 2022 Democrats held. So they held every race, and Pennsylvania was the only seat to flip. You look at them, Republicans could keep Johnson in the Senate, but with the Republican senator retiring, Fetterman was able to flip the seat by a pretty convincing near 5% margin. But we see Schumer's race is a bit close, 14%. And Nevada was very close. Democrats won that by 0.8. So you can even see these trends here as to how they were closer than expected, but Republicans could not capitalize. Although, again, it would have been really hard to because they would have needed to have flipped a seat, and instead a seat flipped against them because really Nevada, Georgia, and Arizona were the only opportunities, which Democrats won by 0.8, 4.9, and 2.8. Like, they didn't really have many other opportunities, and North Carolina and Wisconsin were very hostile seats that the Republicans were able to hold down. You know, just wanted to point that out. Also, Florida, 16.4% of the Republicans. Again, it's really not that much of a swing state anymore. But so that's why I say, though, 2016, you look at the map and you look at who won in 2022, and it's very consistent. Although Hassan's seat certainly solidified. But honestly, like, you know, you have to look at the maps because 2020, you know, was a really bad race for Republicans. Like, they obviously lost 3 seats and control of the Senate, although they were able to somehow have Susan Collins stay in power in Maine. But, like, again, you can't just look at margins for a thing like the Senate where it's different seats going up. You have to look at, and look, to see who's away, you have to look at where the races are, because this was going to be a tough one for Republicans to defend anyway, and it was even tougher with all the special elections, which Democrats won both the Arizona and Georgia special elections, and they were able to flip both seats in Georgia. And obviously then keep them in the other elections. In 2018, you know, I want to point out as to how brutal this would have been. So first of all, Republicans flipped North Dakota, Indiana, Missouri, and Florida. And Nevada and Arizona both flipped towards the Democratic Party. But again, you know, Florida was the only one who was even close. And I think that Scott winning the Florida Senate race kind of helped to prove how Florida might be moving away. Although, again, Brown won Ohio by 6.8, and Tester won Montana by 3.6. You know, Manchin won West Virginia by 3.2. Like, again, this is a blue wave election, even though Republicans actually gained seats relative to 2016, and that was so obvious with, you know, where they're winning. I mean, Democrats won Montana. They won Ohio. They dominated Pennsylvania by 13.1. I don't know how New Jersey was that close. Michigan 6.5, Wisconsin 10.8, and you know, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio. These are all states that Trump won, especially Montana and West Virginia. Like, you can even look at the margins for 2020. I mean, like, you know, in 2016 presidential election, you can even look at the margins in some of these states. I mean, like, the fact that in 2016, you know, Trump won West Virginia by 42%, and yet it still maintained a senator. And Montana, Trump won by 20.5. Ohio, he won by 8.1. Arizona by 3.5, and it flipped blue. So these trends were already starting to emerge to begin with. And, you know, for the gubernatorial elections, everything stayed constant. Vermont, even though it's one of the most blue states in the country, they were a very popular Republican incumbent. So he won by 51%. New Hampshire, not an incumbent, and the Republicans still won it by 9.2. Every state stayed constant in this election. Although governorships, sometimes you can get, it can be easy to cross party lines. Looking at past elections for the governorships, 2023, they flipped Louisiana. Oh, they could not flip Kentucky. You know, Kentucky stayed with the Democratic Party. 2022, they actually lost 2 seats. Maryland and Massachusetts, with their governors not running, were givens to flip, and look at how safe they were. Republicans did flip Nevada, 1.5% for the Republicans, which again is a signal that Nevada could potentially be going back to being a competitive state after it looks solidified for a bit. But Arizona, they won the governorship by 0.67. They held down the governorships convincingly in Pennsylvania and Michigan, and Evers did win Wisconsin by quite a bit. Kelly maintained a seat in Kansas. Oregon was somehow only 3.4%. And New York was also close, but, like, again, it's general trend of, you know, like, everything narrowing down, everything looking competitive. And we saw, and again, 2022, seeing how they flipped. Obviously, when you compare 2018 to 2022, you even see a mix of how some of these states. Oh wait. You can see like how like a lot of these states shifted red, but some of them certainly shifted blue. Looking at them. Because 2018 was a red wave, but the Republicans just could not capitalize. In 2022, it was supposed to be a red wave. After the 2018 blue wave, really just set them behind the 8 ball. 21, you see how California is obviously convincingly, they keep Newsom. Glenn Youngkin flips Virginia at 1.9%, and Murphy wins New Jersey by 3.2. So again, showing that competitive nature and flipping a seat in Virginia. So again, you have to look at all these things and realize this. But this was definitely more of a Republican, I don't want to say landslide, but like definitely, a big Republican election. Looking at it, we can look at the tipping point state, which is obviously the state where obviously if if they flipped, it would still be, to keep it. So like in this case was in this case, Wisconsin put those 10 to the Democrats. Trump still wins. It's 302 to 226, assuming everything else is constant. And Arizona, Nevada goes predicted. Michigan 1.4. Still puts Trump at 287. Pennsylvania, Trump is at 267 without that state. So it's a 2.1% tipping point state, which is obviously really big. How do I end